Hello, angels. Welcome to another episode of Sense, Feel, Transform. This episode I'm calling Life Moving Towards Life, which is a major tenet of somatic therapy and also an organizing principle, a universal rule that can be seen everywhere we look in nature. If you're watching the recording of this, you will maybe notice that I am wearing golden under eye masks. I'm also wearing these little sock booty things full of gel for a foot mask. Thank you to my mother-in-law for that gift. In its own small way, my choice to luxuriate in these little acts of self-care and self-love as I work, as I record this, are a very humble example of life moving toward life. Because I love luxury, because I love beautiful things, I enjoy sensuality, and I deeply appreciate being in my body and in relationship and communication to my body as I go about the other aspects of my day, which happen, fortunately, to be very much involved and entangled in embodiment. Because I love these things, they make me feel certain qualities of aliveness, pleasure, calm, luxury, peace, that make me feel more alive. And so in this small way, I am embodying, I am enacting life, me, moving towards life, creating opportunities for myself to feel more of life, creating conditions in my life that allow me to sink into, be present with, and enjoy life, even in these small and subtle ways. And I want to talk to you today about the whales and the trees, the flowers and the people. And this is something that came through for me today, and which brings with it some rather fresh flavors of emotion and even grief for me, which may be shared by you. And so I just let you know that at the top of the hour, that as with any discussion about the natural world today, there will be flavors and elements of climate grief present in me and in the discussion today. And these refrigerated eye masks may find themselves slipping under the duress of hot tears before the episode is through. And that's okay. So a very quick little history lesson, micro history lesson. that just explains a little bit how we got here, how human beings found ourselves so distant from the apparent, or apparently distant from the laws of nature. Well, colonialism has been alive and well for millennia. Peoples, nations, tribes have been warring against one another, have been intentionally destroying each other's cultures, each other's knowledge, each other's languages, each other's connection to the spirit world for millennia. And so when we get to the 17th century, which is when a lot of somatic practitioners point to as a real birthplace of a fracture for human beings between body and mind, where we find ourselves in a culture of superstition, religious dogma, witchcraft, and social and cultural chaos. Right? We have witch trials. People were, regularly executed in the streets. It was something that was used as almost a source of entertainment. So we, as somatic practitioners, we refer to this time and René Descartes' the philosophy that he established then of rationalism as the kind of major fracturing or fragmenting moment in history where ideologically we began to separate the mind, the human mind, from the human body. We did this, or Descartes did this, as a very reasonable response to this chaos and this constant dis-ease and unsettled nature of the culture that he lived in, and so he argued that the body and the mind are two separate entities, and that the mind was the master of the body. So the human physical urges to have sex, to urinate, to self-pleasure, to, do all of these things that were decidedly a sin in religious dogma. This was something that could be addressed. So with science, with rationality, with just using the mind to be the master of the body, human beings could step out of this very dirty, messy, chaotic, terrible time and find a higher state of being. And this is where, science really became the defining aspect of civilization. Civilized nations became those that were scientific, that were rational rather than emotional, that were that could prove by science that which they lived by. And so anything that could not be proved by the science of the time became kind of shadowy, became was rejected or became representative of a lower state of being. And in this way, the body became a place of shadow, became uncivilized, became this unruly, messy, dangerous site of lust and disease and sin that, if not controlled, if not strictly governed by the clean, scientific, rational brain, would quickly get out of hand. And I'm sure you can taste in this, little micro history lesson, flavors of patriarchy, of misogyny, women with their leaky bodies, as a famous academic paper called them, with their monthly bleeds, with their lunar cycles, with their ability to create life and give birth, and their connection to the tides, to the moon, to all of these mysterious and mystical and more ethereal qualities. They, as well as mystics, as well as shamans, as well as anyone who had that connection to nature, to the planet, to wisdom and insight that could not be categorically proven by the limited means of scientific inquiry of the time, were considered dangerous. So it became also a very convenient way of erasing certain types of people. And I don't think that I need to explain too much how this is still in operation today, right? We still live in Western society, in colonial societies, in a very rationalistic overculture, which prizes and has always, as long as we've lived, been about proof. That which you can prove is real, that which you cannot prove is not real. It doesn't matter how limited our capacity to prove something may be. And the fact that science is always proving past science wrong. So we're not taking into account also, of course, the limited ability of the mind. We have in this centuries-long divorce between the brain, the mind, and the brain and the body, neglected and denied the intelligence of the body. And as I've mentioned a few times now, our mind lives mostly in the intelligence of the body. Our bodies are our unconscious minds, and our unconscious minds make up 95% of our mind, of our intelligence center. We only have conscious access to 5% of our mind. So, with that in mind, where do the trees and the whales and the flowers come in? And where does life moving toward life come in? I'm actually going to continue the metaphor of rationale. I'm going to use a metaphor that has been produced by this rationalistic overculture, which is that of the human as a machine, right? With our post-industrial world, we have really come to equate the human being to a machine. And even today, we see a lot of coaches, of thought leaders, of people using optimization, productivity, using technological language and even the language of the computer to reference optimizing, upgrading, improving the human mind and body. So to use this metaphor on nature, all things in nature are akin to a central processing unit, in that they take in, they process, and they feed out. Trees absorb sunlight, they photosynthesize, they suck nutrients from the ground, they release oxygen, they process carbon dioxide. They're constantly taking in, processing, and then releasing. Whales, when they swim, they're doing several things at once, right? They're taking in air from the surface, using it to oxygenate their blood, which powers their systems. Then exhaling carbon dioxide into the air, as all mammals do. They're also mouths open, taking in water, filtering that water for fish, for plankton, whatever it is they eat, digesting it and excreting it. They're taking in information with their eyes, with their skin, with their nervous system in their brain. They're scanning the environment for dangers, for feeding opportunities, for their child, their calf. They're taking all of this information in. Their brains are filtering out what is not necessary, what is not useful, processing that which needs to be enacted upon. And the whale moves, behaves, acts accordingly. Human beings don't quite work like that. Human beings, because of their sentience, come up against sticking points that arguably all other beings in nature do not. So when we move through the world, a very complex world compared to just a couple of centuries ago or even a century ago, sure, we breathe the air, but we have different ways of breathing, right? We might sip air. We might hold our breath. We might find ourselves unable, even when we are trying consciously, to breathe fully into our lungs. When we eat, we can eat because we're hungry, we need to eat a certain amount of calories, but for a lot of us, we eat before we're hungry. We maybe eat when we're bored. We might eat when we're feeling sad or worried or afraid, in which case we probably tend to eat much more than we actually need in that moment. We take in information with our eyes, our brain, our central nervous system takes in that information. And sure, it scans for dangers in the external world, as the whale does. Sure, it looks for opportunities. something is happening in all of these processes that is preventing those processes from moving through and flowing. And that is a direct result of our prioritizing and separating the mind, the brain, from the body. We've come to live in our brains. We've come to believe that our brains are where our intelligence is, are where our personalities lie, are where all of our value and our worth and our wisdom and our insight and our intuition live and exist. And in doing that, we've divorced ourselves from even knowing the majority of ourselves. When we live in our minds, when we live from our minds, even more specifically, when we live from this point in the top of our forehead, close to our third eye, but not actually, where we're continually forcing our way forward with a pointed gaze on the next thing, we're living in a state that is limited to a pinpoint of our reality. We're forgetting all of the information, all of the lived wisdom, all of the accumulated knowledge and intuition from evolution, from our earliest times, before we were Homo sapiens. We've evolved from creatures that have lived for millennia. And most of that information is not available to us in our conscious minds. When we live in our brains, we are allowing the voices of self-criticism, of ego, of damaged parts, of fear, to determine and shape our existence. And when we do that, nothing we experience in the outside world is able to fully move through us. We have a meeting at work, we're up here in our minds, in our heads, trying to navigate it, trying to make sure that everything goes right, that you don't do anything wrong. Someone says something that feels insensitive or downright rude. It doesn't get acknowledged, and all of a sudden, you're triggered and you're living in this state of hyper-arousal. I can't believe this person just said that. What does that say about how I'm valued or how I'm seen in this organization, that nobody said anything to acknowledge it? What does this mean about me? It must mean something about me. We get stuck on an experience and then we internalize it. We store it. Now it's so uncomfortable. By the time we get home, we just want to have a drink and maybe talk about it, maybe bitch about it with a partner or a friend, or maybe just pretend like it didn't even fucking happen because, I like the number of times this has happened now. Like, it's got to be my fault. It's got to be on me. I just need to get another job. Rather than allowing this experience to be felt in the body, where we can allow all of the complex feelings, emotions, responses that are arising, sit with them, process them, feel them, and let them go. When we do this, instead of storing this crummy energy that makes us feel shitty and that makes us feel something negative about ourselves, we allow it to dissolve, to transmute, and to change us in very subtle but very meaningful ways. If we think of a processing unit as something physical outside of the computer metaphor, you put something, let's say a food processor. You put food in, it gets processed into whatever you've chosen it to like ribbons or pulp or whatever, and then it comes out. When we are not feeling the feelings that accompany an experience, we're literally just putting something in the food processor and then leaving it there. What's that going to do? It's going to block the opportunity for the next experience, the next piece of food. It's going to rot. It's going to mold, they get moldy. It's going to create all kinds of unpleasant, unpalatable future experiences by being there. And this is how we get clogged. And this is how we become humans who are numb. Humans who don't feel fully alive. Humans who feel disconnected from themselves, from other people, from their bodies. Instead of life moving toward life, we become life resisting, managing, controlling life. We've become so inflated by our collective egos that we have genuinely believed we are the masters of the natural world. We have dominion. And we've done this, we've got to this place by denying all of these parts of life, these experiences that our minds don't like. I don't want to feel that. I don't want that to be what happens. I don't want to feel this grief. I don't want to have to see this about myself. I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel discomfort. And so I deny this, and in doing so, I store it in my body so that it becomes a continued reality. And it makes sense because being a human is pretty painful. Being a human today is pretty painful. When this little message came through this morning as I was sitting in meditation, as soon as the archetype and the being of the whale came into my mind's eye, I had to sit with heartbreak. I really love whales. I really love trees. I really love every living creature. Not a huge fan of flies and maggots. Still can find it in me to respect their right to be here. But whales, thinking about whales really breaks my heart lately. You've probably noticed or come across one of the many, many stories about whales dying in huge pods, dying in huge numbers, revolting against wealthy people in yachts, beaching themselves. Whales are, and like many wild animals, they're on the front lines of climate change. They can't escape the conditions that have been created by human beings over the last few centuries. And do I want to think about that? No. No, I do not. What can I do about that? What can I do about that? Okay. What the fuck can I do about that? On the other side of feeling into devastating grief, fucked up reality, honest to God tragedy, there is alchemy. There is a different state. There is a different place where there's fire. There's some anger, but there's fire. There is power. My place is not in global ocean policy. I may not be able to directly make any difference to the plight of the whales in my lifetime. But so long as I stay on that first side of feeling my feelings about it, I do nothing. I push those feelings away, thereby denying the right that these whales have to be respected, to be considered, to be cared for, to be conserved, to be protected, to live wild and gorgeous lives, to be alive. If I cannot feel my feelings, what I'm doing is I'm denying their aliveness. Instead of life moving towards life, I'm turning the fuck away from life. And when I turn away from life, not only do I deny the humanity, the animality, the right to these living beings' right to live, I deny the most perfect, vital, beautiful human parts of myself. Because how many times can that inner child of yours who believes that the world is perfect and that all animals are beautiful and amazing and that why can't we all just love each other? This world is big enough for all of us. How many times can that inner child witness you turn away? Pretend it's not happening because you don't have the courage to feel your... How many times can that inner child watch you do that and live within you and not become part of your shadow? This is your relationship with the natural world, your relationship with reality, your relationship to what's truly happening to you in your day-to-day life is directly related to your inner child. Who is arguably the very best version of you. It's one thing for her to be trampled by other people's opinions, to try to shape herself in different ways because other people have told her that she's too much of this and not enough of this. It's a very different story. For you to choose cynicism and resignation and hopelessness and sorrow over her. Because she lives and she has so much to contribute. Imagine what this planet would look like if people lived with their inner children intact and engaged, awake, present, part of the decision-making process. Where would the whales be then? There would be some fucking major changes. And this is why this work is so fucking important. This is where the revolution lies. If you continue to turn away from yourself, from your aching heart, from your grief, from your sadness, you continue to choose the path of dying. That collectively we are marching down. It does not have to be this way. And a lot of the messaging, a lot of the, the headlines, like, I'm not a climate change denier, okay? I see what's happening. I'm just not going to accept that this is inevitable. Nothing is inevitable unless you decide that it is. Are we up against massive systemic resistance? Fuck yes. The only way that system wins is if we on an individual level give up the fight. Choose numbing, choose consuming, choose food, choose alcohol, choose shopping, choose ownership, choose competition. Choose to stick our fucking heads in the sand, an ostrich, trying to attain a life that was sold to us by the systems that are extracting every resource and damaging every fucking ecosystem on the planet. I know this is a lot. It's a lot. And the reason that I was able in this recording to process my grief in the moment over the whales in less than 90 seconds is because I have spent the last 2 years plumbing the well of my grief. It doesn't get to be this quick, this tidy, this easy to metabolize and transmute right away. And I mean, I haven't just exercised all the grief that I have about the whales. It's ongoing. Okay, this is the water we swim in. This is the world that we live in. This is the reality that is here for us. And we have two choices. We can turn away. We can stick our heads in the sand. We can continue on the path of numbing and disassociating, lying to ourselves, pretending that we're fine, telling ourselves, I'm going to be fine. I live here where it's safe from X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to have children. So, that makes... I've decided I'm not going to have children because of this, and that's going to be make my life bearable. I mean, yeah, you can do that. You can do that. I suspect if you've listened to me this far, you can't do that anymore. You can't lie to yourself anymore. And why the fuck should you? This is how they win. This is the only way they win. These, nebulous forces of evil. There is a way to be here powerfully, lovingly, with deep presence, deep fucking reverence for this world, for every human being on it, no matter how flawed. And when you choose to live from this place, anything is possible. Anything is possible. I mean, aliens exist, y'all. Who knows what they've got planned? I think they're on our side. I think they're on the side of the whales anyway, and that's what really matters to me. So, I have kind of laid a gauntlet for you today. I hope you don't mind. You have a choice. Every day you have a choice. Do you want to be life moving toward life? I'm not going to explain any further what that might look like day to day because you are life. You are life. And you are alive. You're alive here and now for a reason. You came here to do something. And regardless of your assessments in this moment about how big, small, or otherwise that thing that you came here to do is, it cannot be understated how important it is. And with that, I will make my first offer. I invite you to come do this work with me. Let me come with you as you navigate embodying life, moving toward life. In your relationships, in your work, in your family, in your creative projects, in your activism, whatever you're here to do, whether you know what that is yet or not, you are here to do something that cannot be underestimated, cannot be understated. And I'm here, a fellow traveler who's gone a ways down the road. I'm here to help show you, guide you, be your pacemaker, your shoulder, your ear, just to be a companion, supportive and reassuring. As you continue to navigate life as life, moving ever beautifully towards life. I see you, I love you, I believe in you. My soul sees your soul. Till next time.